Do you want to earn more? Work less and enjoy what you do each day? It's no secret, it can be done. This podcast with Dr. T will not only educate and inspire you, it will also teach you how to do more and be more with the time you already have. It will be like a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of your business. Here is your host, Tyson Franklin.
Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of It's No Secret with Dr. T. I have someone very special with me today. She is a journalist, a teacher, but she also has cerebral palsy, and she has a podcast called Ask Win. Today, I am glad to have on the show Win Charles. Win, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I got turned on to your podcast by Eric Hunley of Unstructured, which is another fabulous podcast. And when I asked him, what is your favorite podcast, when I interviewed him for Ask Win, he goes, well, here's a kicker for you. I don't really like business podcasts, but I do like this one. And it's called It's No Secret with Dr. T. And so I typed it into my podcast player and absolutely fell in love. Got to interview you, and then we're actually doing another interview.
We are. Because
Uber Conference did a little no-no and dropped the phone call. I sat there, and then I forgot to hit the record button of all things. So Tyson needs to come back on and finish his interview with me. But after 4 years of doing podcasting, I'm like, why did you do that? Why? Of all people, why? So luckily Tyson is kind enough to come back on. And so I fell in love with your podcast because of Eric Hunley's recommendation.
No, and that's what I like about the podcasting world in general, but the business world. If you have strong connections with people, they will recommend you to other people. And I think it doesn't happen enough inside the podcasting world. We're always giving each other recommendations, but outside the podcasting world, sometimes, I don't know, people don't recommend enough businesses if they think that person can be of benefit or just be a great working connection in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, by the way, I have a taxiospastic cerebral palsy, CP for short. Welcome to my life, everyone.
Well, that's why I've got you on here, is because you have cerebral palsy. If someone didn't pick it up beforehand, Win is not drunk at the moment. She hasn't been drinking.
No, Win is not drunk. This is part of my speech impediment. Also, I have a little bit of cold. I don't know why I got that. So sorry about that, everyone. You get to hear the noise, the cold aspect of CP today. CP plays a significant role in my life, but I haven't seemed to let CP stop me even with a cold.
No, but that's like I was saying. That's why I've got you on the show, is because when I was on your podcast, and I'd listened to you on Eric Hunley's podcast, Unstructured, as well, and I realised, well, you have a disability, and you have not let that stop you, becoming a journalist, becoming a teacher, becoming a podcaster, getting on other people's shows, and just getting out there and doing what you need to do. So what made you different to some people who will have a disability who hide?
Well, I, of course, knew about my disability at the age of 6 because I was really lucky enough to go to a private school, able-bodied. All my friends were able-bodied. I didn't even know what individualized education plan, IEP, was until I was in high school. I didn't even know what a special ed class was until I was in high school. And so I kind of figured out as a young curiosity 6-year-old what was wrong with me. Wasn't until I was in 7th grade did I know that I had CP. Wasn't until now, believe it or not, people are going to drop their cell phones when I tell them this fact. Wasn't until I was 31 years old did I get the official diagnosis of my CP.
31.
Yes, I knew I had CP. I just called it the mixed bag of CP, but the official diagnosis is ataxia spastic cerebral palsy.
Okay, that sounds a little bit more complicated.
Yep. And so I, when I stared at the piece of paper, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Here we go. So I am a champion for cerebral palsy, been a champion, all the diagnosis, all the podcasting. And so I am just a champion. And now that I have the official diagnosis, I won't even let that stop me even more, because I want to be a champion for the kids that are the kids ahead of me that are diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Okay, one thing that stood out then when you were talking, like when you were 6, was when you first realised that, and you went to like an able-bodied school. So would you say your parents had a lot to do with making you just feel that there was nothing, there was no disability? They just treated you normally,
Yes.
and you just lived
Yes.
a normal life. They didn't wrap you in cotton wool.
I applaud my parents for making it seem like I had no disability. They didn't send me to a public school until I was in high school, primarily. And so they made it seem like Wynn should keep up with her friends, and they made it seem like I had nothing wrong with me.
It's like I said, I think your attitude towards how you see things yourself, and it plays a really important part on what you end up doing with your life.
Yep.
So I've got a question for you. Why journalism? What was it about journalism that got you excited?
Well, I lost my mommy. I lost my biological mom to a brain aneurysm / meningitis. And the day she died, she actually was dying on August 11th, 2010. And so August 12th, she officially died. And the year before she died, I lost my job in the economics class of 2008, 2009. I lost my volunteer job. So basically, my story is a double blow. I lost my job, then that next summer I lost my mom. So I said to my mom, and I'm going to spell a word here, you guys can figure this out, Fuck. I'm done with the education field. I want to go back to journalism school, and I want to come back to this hospital eventually and figure out why they gave you meningitis and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so basically that's why I'm going back to journalism school, because I don't know if you have the same problem in Australia, but we have a huge ass problem in the U.S. where teachers are not getting paid well. I was interviewing a person yesterday named Elizabeth, who was a teacher in Australia, and she also said the same thing, that teachers don't get paid well. So that's why I'm pursuing a degree in journalism.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about teachers over here. I know they don't get paid extraordinary money. I think they get paid, probably pretty good money, but they also get a lot of holidays that go along with it. But if I had to sit in a room all day with 20 or 30 kids, I would want holidays as well. And I don't think you could pay me enough to actually do what they have to do. But what I think is important with teaching is these people are moulding the minds of our future generations, and they should be paid accordingly. But one of the problems here with in Australia too with teaching, it's and they're changing some of the standards from what I've just read something recently in the paper, and because to get into teaching at some teaching places, the bar has been set a little bit lower, so anybody could get into certain teaching areas, which therefore reflects on the quality of the teachers, which then reflects on the quality of the students. But yeah, when in my podiatry clinic, we used to get a lot of teachers that would come in as patients, and some of them I used to sit there and think, my God, I'm so glad my child is not in your classroom. You have the most negative attitude towards life that has to rub off into your teaching.
No, when I was getting my teaching certification, I had a teacher tell all of us, I don't want to be here teaching you guys. I want to be at home with my kids. And this was at 5 o'clock at night, and we were doing it via video conference, and we just said that. And I'm like, oh, great, we don't want to be here either, but you have not made it a happy golden place for us either.
No, I had a few teachers that actually said that to me, that they didn't want to be there, but I think it was only just because of me. I think they're fine with the rest of the class and they like the profession, but I think I had a great knack when I was about from 12 up of getting under teachers' skin. I don't know why. Don't know why they get that way.
I try to not get under teachers' skin, but sometimes I can't help it because of my disability. I try not to, but sometimes the CP tries to come and play as a journalism student, and I'm like, go away, CP. And I'm like, okay, you want to come out and play? That's fine, but please let me do my work and let me get good grades so I can get this journalism degree.
And I think one of the other things, like comparing Australia to America too, is especially when it comes to like cerebral palsy, is we had a comedian over here called Steady Eddy, which I think I sent you a link to one of his videos. How did you find Steady?
You told me about that when I interviewed you.
Yeah.
You know, I still haven't looked up Steady Eddy. I was trying to remember the comedian that you said, and now I need to look him up on YouTube later today.
I'll send you a link. I'll look up Steady Eddy and I'll send you a link. But he was in Australia. He was a stand-up comic who had cerebral palsy, and he actually what everyone loved about him was he proved that people with disabilities mentally were as switched on as anybody else, and he was funny. But he would say jokes about himself, and which he was saying what people were probably thinking, but he would turn it into a twist. Yeah, would twist it and make it actually quite funny. So I will send you some links about Steady Eddy, and if anybody else wants to check out Steady Eddy, he is very, very funny. So with in the podcasting world, you went into podcasting, which of course, you have a slight speech impediment. So of course, the one thing that you will want to do is somewhere where you're talking all the time. So why podcasting? What gave you that interest to want to get into podcasting and talk to other people?
Well, at the time, I started listening to podcasts before even I produced one podcast. Now I am in charge of 4 podcasts in total.
Oh, so you've got multiple. I knew you did one. I didn't realize you were doing 4.
I do 3 on my own, and then I'm picking up another one for my school, for my journalism program, because funny enough, they listened to Ask Win, and they said, oh, we want to do a podcast too for the Academy of Arts in San Francisco. And I'm like, oh boy, you guys listen to it, and now you guys want to make a podcast for the students and the teachers and everything else with me at the captain of the ship. I said, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. But me at the captain's table of the Academy of Arts podcast, it's going to be interesting. But when people ask me to help them start a podcast, I'm like, good. More people to get to the point of listening and being educated by podcasts.
Yeah, and you've done, like, even on Ask Win, how many episodes are you up to at the moment?
I am up to 998 episodes.
Oh, that's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
So, and I know that when you do your interviews, you don't just do like one interview a week or maybe one or two a week. You batch a whole pile and you just do one after another. How many interviews do you do in a day?
I am fully booked on Tuesdays. Tuesdays is my recording day, and then I'm lucky to have teams around me that can help me and upload them. I taught my assistant how to upload them, and because I also taught my assistant how to schedule, because day one I knew that if I would still be doing the upload process, the interview process, the scheduling process, all that stuff that goes behind the scenes, I was going to get burnt out and not make it till episode 7, which a lot of podcasts stayed at episode 7. And so I'm like, I need help. And so my girlfriend, who also does a podcast with me called The Diary of a Fashionista, specifically all about cerebral palsy, the 2 women with cerebral palsy doing the podcast. And she does that with me. We have that recording once a week. That's a weekly show. Ask When is 3 times a week weekly show. Then I have Welcome to Journalism, which is me talking about my journalistic journey as a student with cerebral palsy and my life and everything else. So
it keeps you busy.
Yeah. And then I'm also on top of that, I have 8 published books. I'm working on my 9th, and I'm working on my 10th published books, and
So with podcasting, if somebody's thinking about podcasting, they're going, yeah, I've thought about having a podcast. I don't know whether I should or shouldn't, because there is a time commitment. There's a bit of a heart and mind commitment as well. But would you say podcasting is beneficial?
Would I say podcasting is beneficial?
Yes.
Yes, I would, because when I was writing my book, I listened to the Creative Penn podcast, and Joanna Penn, to give you her back history, Joanna Penn was in accounting before she did NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, I believe, in 2015, and that became her first book, and then she got so good at it that now she's making a full-time income as a writer. And I'm lucky to say that I'm now making a partial income as a writer too. And so at the time I was writing a book, and so I needed a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Well, at the time when I typed in writing, over 1,000 podcasts came up. When I typed in cerebral palsy or CP, and I'm not kidding, nothing came up. Nothing.
So there was a market for it.
Yeah.
So would you say if somebody today is thinking, I might start a podcast, instead of just starting another interview podcast, they should really be looking at what is currently not being produced in the podcasting world?
Yeah.
Do you have a skill or knowledge?
Be looking at, I don't know if your listeners or you are familiar with John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. Well, John makes a full-time living also podcasting, and he's a podcasting coach, and I've had him on Ask When, and the guy only does 15-minute interviews because he's so popular, and he gets thousands and thousands of downloads on Entrepreneur on Fire, and I hate it because it makes every podcast a second when they bring them up. Because so you need to look what's not happening in your space that you're expert on in the podcasting space.
No, I totally agree. I think there's plenty of room for more podcasts, but if you can niche it down, I think it's I think there's a lot of money in it if you want to niche it down and create like a following just around that niche that you actually develop. So with just going back to the books that you wrote, what are the book titles? I don't know if you want to name all 9 that you've written, but what are the the thinking behind each of the books.
There is The View from My Hills, which is a novel series. Basically, that's a series, and that's more of a YA young adult novel series. There is my famous I Comma Win, which started all this podcasting journey, and there is The Mosaic of CP, which is my second autobiography after I Comma Win. There is a couple anthologies thrown out there. 20 Beautiful Women, which is the anthology I was in, which I get no money, no credit for. And then there is The Power of Social Media, which I was also in. And yeah,
So they've been quite varied.
so yeah, they've been quite varied. But I write a better novel than I do autobiography, and a better and better novel than I do an anthology. Anthologies are way too much for me. That's why I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, I think your next book could be Win Charles, CP, Kicking Life's Ass.
Yes, maybe. Yes, maybe. We have to be careful what we put on Amazon. But anyway, that's what I do, and because of my university studies right now, the books have taken a backseat, but I plan to get one done and edited by June 22nd, which is my birthday, and I plan to sign a contract with the small publisher. So we'll see what the small publisher can do, because I am sick and tired of dealing with the Amazon and Kindle Direct publishing dance.
Oh, okay. But what's your problem? What's been the problem with Amazon and Kindle?
Because they shut down the where I published where all my books were published.
Yeah.
They have now, which caused a headache for a lot of authors, including myself. They have now did a merger with Kindle.
Who was that?
Create Space did a merger with Kindle.
Oh, right.
And so Create Space, you used to be able to publish a paperback book, and they closed their doors, and then they merged with Kindle, and then it just caused a whole big mess.
But I think that happens with a lot of companies sometimes when different things are closed down and they merge, and they're doing it for particular reasons, whether it's convenience, whether it's for the benefit of the customer or it's cost saving. But sometimes change can just I don't know, throw your mojo off a little bit too.
Yep.
So with writing, like you said, a lot of things took off with one of the books that you wrote. What was that one called again?
I Comma Win, my original book. I Comma Win still sells to this day. As a matter of fact, as we're recording this interview, someone told me on Twitter, and someone told me yesterday via my podcast, they bought a copy of my book.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've written two books, and my first book that I wrote was very specific, and it was written for the podiatry industry. Yeah, it's no secret there's money in podiatry. So I wrote that in 2014, and even the publisher says to me today, she says, I still cannot believe that every month a certain number of books are purchased between the UK, United States and Australia. And I said, well, you continue to have podiatrists retiring, you have new ones graduating, you have new people setting up businesses. So you'll probably find the same with your book. There's always people that are looking for information. So it's going to be one of those books that will be around for a long, long period of time.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And I have, that book has been out for 8 years because I published that book. I wrote that book right after my mom died. Actually, she gave me the blessing to write that book. She was in a mentally induced coma, and I asked her after having her medical machines stopped, because I needed to ask her a question, and how I did that is, God, I said, I love you, Mom, I love you, Mom, I love you, Mom, over 100 times, enough so that her medical machines would stop beeping the heck. And I asked her, I said, well, now that I calm you down enough, can I write a book? And she said in a telepathic way that yes, as long as you don't spill too many family secrets, you can write this book. And she's the one that gave me the blessing to do I Come a Win. I don't know if she's the one that now would like me interviewing people and sticking my nose where it's not wanted. But sorry, Mom, that's the journalist and your daughter that is here today.
No, that's funny. So if people want to connect with you, I've noticed that LinkedIn is probably one of the platforms you use probably more than anything else.
Yes, LinkedIn and Twitter.
LinkedIn
and Twitter. I'm under Win Kelly, Kelly on Twitter, and Win Kelly Charles on Twitter. It's my full name, and of course the @ symbol. And then my LinkedIn is Win C. C as in cookie. Yes, I just dated myself with the Sesame Street reference there, C for cookie. But I figured that would be the easiest and make people laugh.
No, that'll be fine. And I'll put links to your Twitter and LinkedIn in the show notes so people can track you down and stalk you while you're sleeping.
Yeah,
which I think is great.
And go ask me any questions about advocacy for cerebral palsy, and we'll make it look nicely. I try not to scare people off.
No, you haven't scared me off, but I'm fearless.
I haven't scared you off yet, Tyson. So I'm doing a good job on that.
Okay, Win, I have one final question for you, and this is my Monday morning tip. So, yeah, there's going to be different people listening to this particular episode. There's going to be a lot of people listen to the show are in small business, but there's other people who I know listen who aren't in small business. They're just thinking about it, or they just like listening to some of the interviews because I have some really cool guests. They bump into you on a Monday morning and say, hey, Win, I'm about to head off for my day, whether it's into work or just life in general. What's the number one thing that you reckon I should do to just start my week the right way?
Write that one word that could turn into the beginning of that book.
Write one word that could turn into a book.
Yes.
Is that because you think most people have got a book in them and they should get what's going on in their head out on the paper, whether they publish the book or not? Is it just start writing?
Most people say I want to write a book, but they're too scared to do it. So I say write that one word on that Monday morning that could be published into a book.
So it's just get started, just start writing. Yep, I must admit,
Yeah.
I said for 10 years before writing my first book, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And
okay,
then once I started,
you were one of them, and I know the day I got the phone call that my mom was being medevaced out, I thought to myself, well, now is the time to write a book. And I thought about it a year solidly before, and a lot of people don't know that.
No, it's surprising how many people that I've bumped into that when they know you've written a book, 1, 2, 10 doesn't really matter. But when you say to them, I've written a book, and they go, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. So there's so many people that want to write a book, but it's just starting is the hard part. So what you're saying is just pick up pen and paper and just start writing, or your keyboard and just start typing, at least start getting words on paper, and then it all comes together from there. Plus, did you get some, actually, I've got another question for you. Did you get some guidance when you wrote your first book, or did you just write your book and send it off to a publisher? Or
I just wrote my book. I had my dad read the galley copy. I hired an editor, but other than that, I just wrote my book.
Okay. See, when I wrote mine, I got some guidance from somebody who had written a few books themselves, and I did that the first time. The second time, because I'd gone through the process, I knew what to do to write my second book. And at the moment, I'm in the process of writing my third book, and I'm taking a slightly different angle. I've connected with a group of people. You know Laura Peterson she has the podcast Copy That Pops.
Yes, I've heard her podcast, and I've heard of her. Yes, I do know Copy That Helps.
And hey, so before you go, whereabouts in the United States are you?
I'm in beautiful Aspen, Colorado.
Aha, okay, so there'd be a bit of snow there at the moment, wouldn't there?
Uh-huh. It's, yeah, it's, we got a good snow. And so I'm in beautiful Aspen, Colorado.
Okay, do you ski?
I do. I am the second adaptive snowboarder in the world.
I knew you would ski. I knew you would ski or snowboard or do something like that because you were Win Charles
Yes.
and nothing held you back.
Yes, I do. I do snowboard, and I've been doing it. I just started my 17th season on Thursday, actually, last Thursday. So, yep.
That is fantastic. So, Win, I want to thank you for coming on It's No Secret with Dr. T. This has been fun, and I reckon anyone that's listening to this today would have learnt a lot more that just because somebody has cerebral palsy does not mean that they cannot do whatever it is that they want to do. So, Win, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
You are so welcome, and your podcast feed will be broken in a good way when this episode drops, because I'll be sharing it all over the place, including LinkedIn, including Twitter, including on my website.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Win today. I know I did, and I do find her quite an inspiration. She does have a disability, but she has not let that stop her from becoming an author, a podcaster, a teacher, and a journalist. So if you're sitting back wondering, why aren't things happening for me in life? Maybe you just need to start taking that chance. Get out there and just start doing something. And that leads on to her Monday morning tip. If you've ever thought about writing a book before, just start by writing down that first word and let that first word take you towards completing the dream of actually writing a book. So before I go, I just want to mention, if you've been enjoying the show, please give us a review on iTunes. It always puts a huge smile on my face. And I've got one here that I want to read out from JT number 3. And it says, "This is a great podcast. What I like about it is that it's not just theory. It has actionable information that you can use right away." So JT3, I want to thank you for that review on iTunes. And pretty much that's it for me this week. If you have any questions at all, please send me an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com. And like I always say, look after yourself, take care of your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.